Hello the world, hello the internet, hello Jason Isaacs. Let's talk about elections in the UK. Now this is an overview. This is going to be kind of dry and technical. We're not going to be looking at any of the particular electoral systems themselves, but rather a few general ideas around them, such as why we have elections and the different types of government style that may emerge as a result. So, we have elections in the UK because we have representative democracy, but that's not really much of an answer to this particular question. If the question asks why do we have elections, well, we need to come up with one of or some or more of the following ideas. Now here are five. So the first one is to select representatives. As we said, we have a system of representative democracy. You need to identify those representatives. You then need to decide whether or not they're doing a good job. So we select our representatives. We then at a later stage decide whether or not they've done a good job, and that is a way of returning them for the next cycle. You did a good job for the last few years, you can presumably do another good job for the next few years. The other reason why we have elections is because this is how people involve themselves in politics. We are a democracy. How does that manifest itself? Well, people need to get involved. We need to have active citizenship. And this is one key idea, or one very, very easy way how people can get involved in politics. We also need to evaluate the ideas that our parties are presenting to us. We're not voting on individual policies. That would be direct democracy, and that's a pain in the backside for everybody. But rather, the parties will put forward a basket of policies, and we then evaluate that basket of policies and see the extent to which we like it, the bits we do like, bits we don't like, and then hopefully make an informed decision off the back of that and leave one party in power to implement those policies as far as they can. The other reason why we have elections is because without them, our government would lack legitimacy. If we don't have elections, then the government has no mandate. We don't go through a properly elected House of Commons, and the entire system would lose its legitimacy. So this will generally come up as a B question, possibly an A question, in which case you'll only be expected to mention two or three of these points, two in an A question, three in a B question. But knowing them will give you a good understanding of elections and the general thinking behind them. So that's that. Questions, you know where to find me. Looking at representative democracy overall, again, this is your definition. This is how it works. It's that idea of having a mediator standing between you and the decision-making process. The next point is this here. These representatives are expected to exercise their own judgment in decision-making. This is Burkean representation, the idea that we're not sending them along as proxies. We give our representatives the right to turn around to us and say, well, that's what you might want, but actually you're wrong, and I think that the correct answer is this. So in Burkean democracy, or in this form of representative democracy, the representative is entirely within their rights to say, no, you elected me to exercise my judgment, and in my judgment you guys are all wrong, and we should do this instead. Now, of course, having done that, the representative will then be expected to present themselves in the next round of elections, at which point they will be held accountable for all of the decisions that they made, assuming, of course, that the punters remember that. So that's representative democracy. I'm not going to go through this particular these good things and bad things because they strike me as being fairly obvious. Again, this is heading towards a C question, so perhaps you've got three on one hand, three on the other. And again, you should be able to work your way through pretty much any question on representative democracy based upon this, with the added understanding of Burkean representation, which won't do you any harm at all. So, what elections do we have in the UK? We have a number of different assemblies in the UK, and each of those needs to be filled somehow. We have the general election, which fills the Westminster Assembly, also known as Parliament. Of course, only half of that is elected. The elected half is the House of Commons, the House of Lords being the appointed half. So that's our general election. Every 5 years we have first past the post, and the results of that will be explained in future videos. And the London Assembly, this is like a council for London. That is elected every 5 years as well, as is the Scottish Assembly that sits in Holyrood and the Welsh Assembly that sits in Cardiff. And all of those three systems use AMS, the additional member system. That is a different electoral system that is designed to correct some of the problems that we've seen coming out of our first past the post system here. The Northern Ireland Assembly, this sits in Stormont Castle in Belfast. That is filled by STV, which is the single transferable vote, which is probably the most complicated system we deploy in the UK. They use that in Northern Ireland for very, very good reasons that I look forward to explaining with you at a later date. We also have specific officers that are elected. We're going to focus on the London Mayor, and they are chosen by the process of supplementary vote. It's worth at this point talking a little bit about different government styles, particularly how they try to come to a decision. In Westminster, we use something called adversarial politics. Now, the name here kind of gives it away. You have adversaries, you have the government, you have the opposition, and they are locked in an adversarial battle. The government will seek to defeat the opposition will seek to defeat the government. There's no idea that things meet in the middle. There's no compromise, there's no concession, there's no consensus. What we have here is the government trying to defeat the opposition and thereby drive its policies through the legislature. So that's adversarial politics. One particular variety of that is coalition politics. And this is when no one government can actually dominate, no one party can dominate the legislature, and so they team up with another smaller party and thereby hopefully achieve sufficient weighted numbers to employ effective adversarial politics. So coalition politics is a way of achieving adversarial dominance, if you will. Something of a rarity in the UK, as our electoral system tends to deliver a working absolute majority for one party or another. We did, of course, have 5 years of coalition politics between 2010 and 2015. Minority governments are even rarer because they, rather like subatomic particles, are extraordinarily unstable and tend not to survive very long. So minority government will occur when they don't have an overall majority, but they decide to do it anyway. And that will generally require them to embrace a much more consensual form of politics. Consensus politics is when the parties start as far apart as ever, but you try to move towards agreement, you try to move towards consensus, and so we meet in the middle. Now, to a certain extent, the type of politics that are being deployed will depend upon the outcome of any electoral result. So as I said, our electoral system tends to deliver a working majority for one party or another. Let's say that this line here represents 50% of the legislature. Here, this party clearly has more than 50% of the legislature, so they can effectively deploy adversarial politics. These guys can gang up all they like, but they won't be able to defeat this party because they have more than 50% of the votes. In this particular system, obviously no one party has more than 50% of the vote, but these guys could gang up, or these guys could gang up, or this party could choose to do it by themselves. Again, that would be extremely unstable, and any coalition of this party, any coalition of the other two, would likely bring them down. So adversarial politics is a fight you would only ever get into if you were pretty sure you were going to win. Here, however, it's quite clear that no one party dominates and no two parties are really in a position to form a coalition. These guys could have a go, but it wouldn't take much of this lot jumping into this pile for them to see their government fall. Anyway, I'm not quite sure what's happened there.